Welcome. We are Neil,
Luke and Dave.
340-somethings reminiscing on the runners and riders of 90s guitar music.
We look at the bands who soundtracked our youth on both sides of the pond and interview some of our heroes from the bands that defined a generation.
You'll hear about the good, the bad and the ugly of 90s guitar music.
This podcast is Stupid and Contagious.
Hello and welcome to episode 51 of the Stupid and Contagious podcast. Just me today giving a quick introduction to what is the first of our special summer bonus episode. So in this episode, I get to fulfill one of my dreams and speak to Joe Thompson and Chris Summerlin of Wrong Speed Records, and they're also both in Hey Colossus as well. So if you don't know Wrong Speed Records, they've been going since 2020, and for my money, they're pretty much the best record label out there. Just complete genreless. The only thing that kind of unites the bands on the label is a commitment to quality and keeping it underground and keeping it real. Also, if you're not familiar with Hey Colossus, they are pretty much my favorite band of the last 20 years or so. Have a listen. So you'll hear Joe and Chris talking about working with Mark Lanigan as part of Hey Colossus and the big plans they had before his untimely passing, and just basically hear them talking about what it's like to run an independent record label in 2024. Just the reality of existing completely outside of the mainstream, and it was a really good chat for me. So I hope other people enjoy it too. So here we go. This is Joe Thompson and Chris Summerlin of Wrong Speed Records, Hey Colossus, Hares, Henry Blacker, and a million other excellent bands from the underground of the UK scene. Enjoy. Thanks for coming on. Do you mind giving a quick self-introduction to our listeners in case they don't know who you are? Or you can introduce each other, whichever way you want to do
it. In the other screen is Joe Thompson, who runs Wrong Speed Records and plays bass in Hey Colossus and Henry Blacker.
Yeah, great. All right, Joe, do you want to introduce Chris?
We've got Mr. Chris Summerlin, Chris Wrong Speed, who also runs Wrong Speed, and he plays in Hares, and he plays in Hey Colossus, and he plays in Cogamaza, and he plays in Lords, and he plays in Grey Hairs, and he plays in Reynolds, and he plays in CG Summerlin, and he plays in Summerlin and some tape with a whole bunch of things.
Some tape we did.
Did he miss any out, Chris? Did he catch them all?
I don't know, actually. I'm confused. I wasn't going to do his entire history, but yeah.
No,
okay.
No.
All right.
Right. That's how you pronounce this one. Is this pronounced Hares?
Yeah. So.
Oh, right. I've been pronouncing it Harris. Harris. I didn't know. I had no idea.
Yeah. I'm going to go public and say, I find it really hard to pronounce it correctly because I used to be in a band called Grey Hairs and we would shorten that band name to Hares. And then I joined Hares, H-A-R-E-S-S. So I always find that I say Hares spelled H-A-R-E-S-S. So the band name like that, because I find it really hard to say it because in my brain, Hares is my old band. But anyway, yeah, that's how to pronounce it.
Okay, good to know. I've been pronouncing it wrong. Well, you've both been in bands, as you said, countless bands since like the late 90s, right? And putting out music and stuff. Can you talk a bit about your early bands or your early stuff you were doing in music?
Joe?
The first sort of band that I was in that did anything beyond playing locally was a band called Stanton. And I was in that band with my brother, Simon Hughes, who is now Fupper, who we released records by, and Mr. Bob Davis, who is the guitarist in Colossus and also the mastermind behind the Mute Servants. And I
Oh,
went to
really?
school with him. Yeah, and I went to school with him, so I've known him since I was about 2. So we did a band called Stanton, and we started our own label to release our things called Johnson Family.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we did for a decade, essentially, up until around 2007, 2008. Yeah, and that's kind of how I met Chris, and a lot of like Nottingham and Colchestery type people and all those bands. We ended up doing Peel sessions together and other exciting things. Yeah, it was good times.
It's brilliant. Talking to Johnson Family, the 2 Minute Men double 7-inches. I love these, man. I love these. You talk about putting these together. These were like, how did you get these bands together?
How it started was there's a band on the blue one, which is the first one, called Grover.
Okay.
Hopefully,
yeah, first track, side one, track one, yeah.
Exactly, side one, track one, because they sent us a whole bunch of songs, and like we didn't have a great deal of money, so we couldn't just be releasing albums by everyone who sent us stuff. But they sent us this load of songs, and one of them was under 2 minutes, and we loved it. And it was that. And that was kind of the acorn behind the idea of doing something with that song. So that something ended up being the first 2 Minute Men compilation. And then the second one. And like, I think we just, virtually all of the bands on there we knew from playing gigs in and around either the Silver Rocket type nights that were happening in London, or the few times that we traveled around the country with that band, which weren't as many as they should have been. Yeah, we just met people, and that was it. And then we got lucky. I think John Peel played almost every song off both compilations.
That's how I knew it. Yeah,
exactly. And it was amazing. And and then him and his producer Louise Cattenhorn, somehow we managed to get 2 nights at Maida Vale where we had 5 bands from each compilation playing 10 minutes each. It's called the 10 Minute Men Night. Chris will have more stories about that, hopefully, whether he wants.
I remember it well. I remember listening to it. Yeah.
And like Chris's band played, and it was quite something. And here's another, actually, as an aside, I watched your Riot Girl episode.
Oh God,
I listened to your Riot Girl episode. And one of the questions, one of the things one of you said was something along the lines of Riot Girl was the last like punk movement to happen, or something, political punk movement to happen. And I totally agree. It's very important and really excellent. And I love a lot of those bands. But I think just existing, doing this nowadays is a political statement. And that in itself it's a political thing to be doing what we're doing and what we did back then.
Yeah.
And we're not the only people to be doing this. I'm not claiming that as there's loads of labels who are also doing the same sort of thing. And I think so that in itself is a political statement.
Totally. I love that. Completely agree. Yeah. Chris, do you remember doing the Peel Maida Vale session?
Yeah, it was on my birthday. It's on my 25th birthday, the one that I did.
Wow.
And we rescheduled it, didn't we, Joe? Am I making this up? I think it was supposed to be in October. And I already had a gig that was like my dream gig ever. So my band I was in at the time, one of the bands I was in at the time, was opening for Fugazi on the night that we got offered originally. And I just thought, we can't.
No.
I begged Joe to change it. Is that right? I seem to remember we were supposed to do it in October.
It sounds right that we'd bend over backwards for you, yes.
It works out, didn't it? Anyway, it ended up being on my birthday. It was really good. I just remember it being, I don't know, whenever you do something for the BBC or you do something that's kind of in inverted commas proper, it's it can sometimes be quite nerve-wracking, and it didn't feel like that at all. It felt lovely.
Wow.
It felt really easy to do. Everyone was very accommodating. We made a lot of friends out of it. It was really nice. Peel especially was great, wasn't he? It was just, yeah. I wouldn't say he put me at ease particularly, but going to the pub with Peel before the session was good. Very memorable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. How was Ian Mackay? Did you work?
I was so nervous about playing. I don't think I spoke to him. We had dinner together. We all had dinner. The 2 bands had dinner in the venue, and I don't think I said anything. I've met him before in a few. I've met him since, and he's extremely charming, and he's an underrated wit. He's a very funny man. doesn't get enough credit for being being a good comedian.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, can we talk about Hey Colossus first? We'll get on to Wrong Speed in a moment. Can we have a quick chat about Hey Colossus? Joe, you were there from the start. How did that come together?
So Stanton was coming to a natural end because my brother, the drummer, moved to Australia in 2003, maybe actually 2004, I think, but around then, so 20 years ago. And yeah, well, certainly Bob and I wanted to do more music, and we decided that we wanted to do a more heavy band.
Mm.
And that was it. And I got the Tim Hall, who was the first drummer I worked with in the office, and he drummed on the first couple of records. And Mr. Ian Scanlon was one of the guitarists who was in Econoline,
Yeah.
who we played with loads with Stanton. And the fifth person was Mr. James Parker, who was the guitarist in Yeast at the time, who were kind of a post-hardcore band, London-based. Yeah, and that was it. We just wanted to do something hefty, and I had this like thing in my head that, and I still have it, where I have this feeling that the Reaper is kind of on our backs, and if we don't crack on with doing things, we're going to look back and regret it. So with that band, we did as much as we possibly could, and still kind of do in the time that we're here.
That's amazing. Yeah. And that was like 2004, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that record that's behind you.
2003.
Yeah, the record behind you, top corner.
Yeah.
We recorded that the first weekend of December in 2003.
Wow.
On the Friday, we played with Black Eyes, the Discord band.
Yeah.
And then Saturday and Sunday, we recorded that record. And then January 2004, that quick, we got the records back and it was released.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, the first record I bought from Hey Colossus was this split with the Phil Collins 3. And I've still got this. If this is from you, Joe, lovely little handwritten note saying thanks for the order. Stuff like that is cool, right? Have you always tried to maintain that kind of personal touch with the fans? It means a lot, you know.
The word fans is pretty weird.
The fans, yeah, it's a weird thing to say. I didn't mean to say that. Do you know what I mean? People that like me, I didn't want to sound like the fucking Spice Girls. You know what I mean?
Well, I do the mail order for the label, and I've done the mail order for, and like when I've got time, I'll chuck stuff in. Sometimes I just put extra records in, or a patch, or a note, or something. And sometimes, unfortunately, I don't if it's too many and I have work and stuff. But I love to do stuff like that because I like getting it as well. I've still got like a Discord Records catalog that I did a stamped address envelope for in the early 90s that came back with a handwritten letter from was it Cynthia Connolly? Who was working there? Was it her? I think it was her. Like still, I keep all that. So
Yeah.
you know, and if I'm nerdy, I kind of imagine the people we're dealing with might be as well, to a point, you know.
Yeah.
But equally, I think that a lot of people are way more cool than us, and I don't think they realise. So it's good to keep a bit of mystery.
Yeah. And I first heard about you. A friend of mine called Chris, who since passed away, unfortunately. He saw you at the Freeba. It must have been early, like 2004, basically. And he sent me like this glowing email saying, "You've got to check out this band." And that's how I first got onto Hey Colossus. Yeah.
Freeba was a good venue. That was closed. Wasn't that the venue that got closed down because people moved in next door to it and complained about the noise?
Is that right? I know they refurbished it and then it became kind of a bit more nice, but have they really shut it down? That's ridiculous. Yeah. Used to live along the road from there. Chris, when did you join Hey Colossus? Quite a bit later, yeah.
Yeah, 2018. But I knew them all when they started, and I probably would have. I don't know. I was always quite, when they were living in London. I was in Nottingham, so it's a bit too far away. But like, I just think I ended up being the only person in my age group who hadn't been in the band. So it just kind of circled around. You know, like you just do your time, you get your letter, and you have to do it. But
You like the
I knew
form.
them all when they I knew the band well when they formed, and the bass player in the band I was in recorded that record behind you.
Mm.
I I did a band really briefly with Ian from Hey Colossus just before Hey Colossus started, where I think we were on the same sort of track. We were just thinking we should just do things that I think we were realizing that you have a finite amount of musical ideas in your life. Don't put 10 riffs into a song, make 10 songs, because these are going to run out one day, right? So we kind of, I think we are having a similar sort of thinking. And but then Ian, that didn't work out because I was in Nottingham, they were in London, and Ian ended up doing Hey Colossus. But I think I joined in 2018. There was a bit of an overlap between me being in and Rue, the guitarist that I replaced. I think Rue was still doing gigs when we were making Dance's Curses, right, Joe?
There was definitely a crazy crossover. There always is, but there definitely was.
Yeah. There was a bit, I think, where my first thing with you wasn't to practice old songs; it was to record. I think. Yeah, classic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it must be difficult to learn the Hey Colossus back catalogue, because the sound changed so much over the 20 years, right? I mean, did that happen naturally, or?
I think it did for them, didn't it? Definitely. I don't think the idea that anybody in the band pre-decides anything is kind of crazy. The idea that anyone would say, "Oh, we need to make an album that's like more sort of vocally led or more sort of accessible." It's just like chaos, and then what did we do afterwards? That's what it feels like to me anyway. But it is. The guitarists that I've replaced, all of whom are really amazing, all had their own really strange style that they had to sort of fit into the band. So it was really hard to join, because I want to make sure that when I'm playing the songs that they played the guitar on, they sort of sound like they do when those people played them. So I like them. I'm kind of a fan. I don't want to ruin it. But they're all really idiosyncratic, oddball guitarists that had their own tunings and everything else. And so it's just like, But I think we're sort of at a point now where not a lot of that is left over, because I've been in it long enough now. We've only got a handful of songs that are left over from that. So, sort of it morphs into being your own thing over time, I think.
Sure. Joe, as a constant member, how do you adapt to the evolving nature of the music like that?
I don't know. It just happens. I don't know. I've never given it any thought. Like,
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Because the idea that the idea that we like, there's been a couple of moments when I've been in the band where we said, right, we need to do something that is like X, Y, and Z. And we've tried to do it, and it's just been a complete failure. Like we had an idea we were going to do a hardcore 7-inch. We're going to try and get like 10,
that'd be amazing.
10 songs on 7-inch, right? We're like,
yeah, you think?
Yeah, right. And we're going to dedicate just 1 hour of recording time to do it.
Yeah,
right?
man.
Like, okay, we're going to call it the Power Hour. Here we go, right? And we tried to do it, and it was just absolutely shit. And every time any sort of pre-decided thing of I think we got like one song came out of it, but it wasn't as it was. I think we just took the sort of like the mosh part of it and just made it a song. But yeah, I think anytime we said like we're going to do this is what we're going to try and do, it never works. So
if you listen to the song Medal on Dance's Curses, there's like 20 seconds before the song starts. That is taken from that.
Oh, really? That hardcore section.
And then it cuts into like a slower version of the same song. Yeah. Essentially, something like that. If you listen to it, you'll go, "Oh yeah, that's the shit bit." Whatever.
Well, no.
we thought we'd put the shit bit in. It's good to have shit bits, like, because then the bits, or at least the average bits, sound good in comparison.
Sure. I don't agree, but yeah. Well, as we're talking about Dance's Curses, and as we're normally a 90s podcast, we've got to ask about working with Mark Lanigan on the Mirror. I mean, how did that come about? How was it? Tell me.
Well, this goes back to me doing the mail order. So I've always done the mail order for either Colossus or labels. And I think that's purely because no one else wants to, rather than I'm some form of domineering force on this. I think it's an absolutely miserable job. But I do like keeping in contact with people. And he was ordering records. He ordered RRR from us. He ordered, yeah. He was ordering records from, say, 3 or 4 years in, because initially I couldn't sort of believe it. Like, his name came through and his address, and I was like, that is in America, and that is that name. Is that him? So I sort of emailed and said, "You're in America, are you?" and he was like, yeah, I'm totally me. And then we just over like a decade, we struck up like an email relationship that I like actually like kind of miss quite a lot, because his emails were so sort of no separate paragraphs, long spiels.
Right. Well, he writes so well anyway, right? Yeah.
But it was just so very like like you could hear his voice even in his even in his emails. So
yeah.
And then this song came up on that album, and it kind of sounded appropriate for him. So I emailed him and said, "Do you want to do it?" And he was like, "Yeah, cool." So Paul, like the actual Colossus singer, sort of did like help and scan the words and write it all out, and yeah, they sort of worked together on it. I think and it just happened, and then other things were planned that never happened because of what happened.
Yeah. So is that right? They were planning more collaboration until he passed away.
Well, I think it's reasonably common knowledge now that in like the album In Blood, he was supposed to be the vocalist on it.
Oh wow. For the whole album.
Yeah. He had it all. He had it, and he was telling me it was all like what word did he use? Word map. He used the word map, which I'd never heard before, which is something to do with like putting the words in the right place, but in his language. So yeah, like it was happening, and then it ultimately didn't.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, it's really sad.
It's a weird period, wasn't it? I'm just trying to sort of fill in something. I feel like we haven't really still got our heads around it. We had these things planned that we were going to do with him, and I think it was in the back of our minds, even though no one ever counts the chickens in this band. But it felt like when he died, it was like, I don't know. We didn't. I don't think. Have you ever met him, Joe, properly in person?
No.
We did. I think we did everything remotely, and we were quite looking forward to meeting him. And we'd sort of agreed that we were going to play together. I don't think his manager's going to watch this, by the way, because his manager told us we weren't allowed to tell anybody about this. I don't think his manager's going to watch this. No. We mean it with love. But and that happened, and we had to make a record out of what we sort of had, which I think turned out in a way better than any one of us could have expected. It actually ended up being a good cathartic way to make a record. But yeah, I still don't think I've quite got my brain around it. I don't know. It was strange.
There's a few sort of like he's a good example of someone who, as big and famous as he is, totally kept his finger on what was going on, because it was going to be Teeth of the Sea. He liked that band as well. Us and his band were supposed to be playing in Brussels. And I think COVID stopped that from happening. I think. So like, the other stuff was already like supposed to have happened and fell apart before ultimately what happened. So, and there's a few other things, because in regards like people you might think are like quite up there who keep their finger on the pulse. Another one being Aaron Turner from like the band Isis and Sumac and all that is someone else who, if you speak to him, he's way deep into what's going on underground. Like, so consequently, we ended up doing a whole bunch of gigs with him, because he also ordered records from us.
Wow. Wow.
So amazing. So consequently, we did like a sort of a week sort of European tour with them, just because, don't know, I think he's just into just like underground music. And like if you see any of his tours now, or like Sumac tours, they're always with like interesting underground bands. And that's why, it's because there's a few people out there like that totally keep their finger on what's going on.
That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. All right, let's get on to Wrong Speed. So when did the label start? What was your vision for the label when you set it up?
Um, it started in 2020, and it started during like that lockdown time. I was furloughed from work because my wife Elise was ill, so I couldn't like go out. So I was at home with nothing to do. So that's why it started. And like the
Wow.
Rains album, the band Rains, who they're both in Colossus, they're both in Henry Blacker, and we've known for years and years.
They were on the 2 Minute Men, weren't they?
Exactly. So we've known them for years and years.
Way back then.
Yeah. Had an album, I think it's like their 5th album or something that it was. I lose track. I think we've just done their 6th. But anyhow, they had this album, they put it up just digitally, and I was like, that needs to be physical. I don't have a great deal of money, we'll just do 100. So the first few releases were just 100 runs, just purely for me to own a copy physically of these records that I liked. Like there's a Sweet Williams one, Bass Clef album, this sort of business. And I don't know, and Chris came on quite early, and then it's just I don't know what it is, but it is, and it has been for knocking on 4 years or so, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what it is a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
it's bigger than I thought it was ever going to be. It certainly takes more of our time than I think either of us anticipated. But that's not bad. And I think that the early, without really discussing it, a bit like Colossus, without ever really discussing what the game plan was or having any like this is what we're going to do, this is the genre we're going to focus on, etc. It was always just about, okay, we want to find people who are a bit like us in the way that they make music, and that would do it even if they didn't have someone to release it. They would do it regardless. Hi Monty. They do it regardless. I quite like, I think that's the only thing that we've ever had, is we've stuck to, we need to feel like the people who are making the music we somehow relate to. And then that has meant that it's just sort of infinite, isn't it, Joe? Like the things that could come out on the label feel infinite still. Like we're not narrowed down or anything. The next few releases we've got are probably going to test that, aren't they? Like in terms of what people think of them, whether we do have an audience or whatever else, whether we've got an audience who expects certain things from a label, I don't know. But yeah, it still feels, despite the fact that we've, I don't know, we are legit now, aren't we, Joe? I think we are officially, the government knows we're a record label now, so it means we're official. Right. But even with all that boringness and the headache of that, it does still feel quite exciting. Sometimes there's little moments, like just doing the recent release for the band Irked that comes out next week.
Yes, yeah.
Just listen to that. Them is just like, that couldn't have happened at a better time. Their enthusiasm for doing what they do really couldn't have hit us at a better time, I think.
I mean, how do you do it? I mean, how do you keep finding all these amazing bands and putting out, like, there's not a bad record in the discography as far as I'm concerned. I mean, how do you just, is it so much shit that comes in and you just reject, or how do you do it?
It's mainly people we know, isn't it? Really, or if it's not people we know, it's people there's definitely a network there in the UK that is maybe underdocumented, and I think it comes from bands when they make it, in inverted commas. So when bands get quite big, there's a need in the UK, it almost feels, to sort of push to the side the things that they did when in the process of making it, or to sort of ignore those connections. And it's nice, like we were just saying about with Lanigan and with Aaron, and also like other bands, like there are UK bands that do it, that bring people along for the ride almost. But it feels like the interconnections between that sort of world in the UK are that the rock family tree you could draw of people in our age group or around our age group is surprising, I think, to most people. Like who you end up knowing in bands, it's like, watching Glastonbury, and it's like there's someone who's on Wrong Speed playing drums for Goldie. There's someone I know, I know really, really well, playing like saxophone for Yard Act or playing guitar for Yard. And it's just like this, it's sort of, this inter sort of woven thing. And so actually, I think a lot of the things that we're not going out and actively necessarily searching for things, but a lot of it comes from recommendations from friends, and a lot of it comes from people we've known for 20, 30 years. So we've got something coming up. As an example, it's rare that we don't know the people at all, but we've got a record that we're releasing or reissuing soon, and it just came about because the band played a gig in my friend's house, and he liked it, he filmed it, and he sent me it on WhatsApp while it was happening. And then he spoke to them afterwards, and he said, they don't care about putting records out. They're absolutely mad. They don't care. You need to get in on this. And so little things like that are just...
Wow. Can you say who that is? Is that...
It's a band. It's a band that don't exist anymore called Deep Cabaret. They do exist, but they don't exist in the form they're in. And it's the main guy is called Steve, and he's 70 years old this year.
Oh wow!
Wow! It's kind of come out of nowhere. But again, that I would put that along. I would put that along with something like Ralph, like bass clef or something. It's like if you think about music in just being in terms of genre, and you think about it as just being in terms of like, I like this sound. I like this sound of the electric guitar. I like it to sound like this, and I like it to speak to me this way. Then that's one way of doing it. Or the other way of doing it is let's just find everybody who wants to make music, even if they're not making money out of it, or if they want to make music because they feel compelled to do that. And you end up with sort of, hopefully you end up with sort of where we are, where you're releasing a solo banjo record on one Friday, and then you're releasing like a one-sided punk 12-inch the next Friday, and and so on and so on. So yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe if we focused in a bit more, then it'd be easier to sell stuff. But it feels right to me.
In one of my more pretentious moments, I think I described kind of following the label as like listening to John Peel in slow motion. Like you don't know what's coming next, but it's going to be good. It's something you haven't quite heard before, and it's going to be good quality, right? So
I'll just write that down. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Richard.
But it does feel like it feels like our in our music making and everything else, it does feel like if there's ever a moment where it feels like it's easy to predict what's going to happen, then we need to do something else. It's always been that way in Colossus, hasn't it, Joe? Like it's kind of, well, we did this really well, let's not do that again. Let's do something else. Just our audience demands this. Fuck them. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. It does feel a bit.
Oh no, it's encouraged on here. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you say that, but you brought the audience along with you, right? You somehow managed to convince people that were listening to sludgy, basically noisy Hey Colossus to listen to the cleaner sound. You got away with it, right?
You could argue, couldn't you? That you could argue, I'm sure, that if the band had carried on doing the thing they originally did and just kept focusing in on it, then that audience also would have grown, but it just would have been people knew what it was more. But I just think it's nice that the people that are to do with the band, it feels like that's the only common thing we share is a desire to sort of never really be pinned down by stuff. So that feels like that's a good enough reason to do a band. We don't particularly share much music interest with each other, but we do share a desire to sort of keep changing and being challenging to ourselves. So yeah, it feels like that's good. We're succeeding on that level, even if we're not succeeding on the making a job out of it level.
Well, that was my next question. I know it's kind of not very English to discuss these things, but I mean, is it like financially viable to run an underground independent label in 2024? Is it?
Nope.
Depends on your definition.
I mean, do you make money?
Well, no.
No.
Ultimately, but like with doing the band, for me anyway, the dream is just to break even and like be doing the thing. Like I don't know, it's just I can't imagine not doing the thing.
Yeah,
it just feels so important to me to document as much as I can of things that friends do. It just feels important, and I don't know whether I don't think any of us should be on some form of pedestal for doing it, because I assume that someone else would do it if we weren't doing it. But it's but it's just like certainly in my mind to be just having this stuff all on quote unquote record.
Well, as for me, it just makes me really happy that you've managed to build this kind of beautiful community of bands and people that are completely outside the mainstream. In this world of algorithms and money, you've managed to build this amazing community. I think it's amazing, right?
Well, thanks very much.
Not a question, sorry, not a question. I'm sorry, but it just makes me happy.
I'll take that. I think like fair to us though, we should be fair to us sometimes as well. I think it's done better than we thought it was going to do, considering the initial like what it cost to do the first couple of releases, and that still is the only money that's really been sunk into it. It's paid for itself and it's done okay. And we have to file tax returns now. Not that's something to be proud of, but it shows that it's on the radar. Because
is it hard to keep it underground? I mean, you always seem surprised when it sells out, which of course it does because it's great music. I mean, are you finding it hard to keep it underground and independent? Is it growing too much?
I don't think we're dealing with bands that can go and do 300 date tours and
no.
Like there's a I'm not saying that there's a ceiling to it, because I think anyone can be, I don't know, some of the stuff we've done is obviously done really well, but I don't think we're picking or being, I don't know, how do you put this without demeaning anyone, because I don't mean to at all.
I think there's definitely a line between what we do and even like the next rung up of an independent label that does it full time. There's this leap there that I don't know if we ever really want to make that leap as a label. But we're getting to a point now where there's bands that we would like to release music by, but who need that extra little bit of support, and they maybe need a little bit more than we can give them, either financially or organizationally. And you see them, that to me is the divide. That divide between you're going to have to do all this yourself, but we're going to back you up as much as we can, and we really care about what you do, versus we're going to do some of this for you. And that I think the bands that we've got, hopefully because they want it to be this way, they still want to maintain some sort of control over what they do when they're gigging, when they're doing things. And I think that little extra leap to a Sub Pop or to a Rocket or something like that, I still think those labels are sort of bigger than what we do, and I think that's completely fair. I think they can exist together and it's all good.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure I necessarily want to I mean, it'd be nice if it was a job, just because we haven't got much time to do it. It'd be nice if we could make it pay a little bit more than it does, but that's not the goal, and I don't think we'll change anything to try and make it like that.
Yeah. All right. Now I'm not going to ask you to choose any favorites, but if people that are listening that maybe don't know Wrong Speed, could you recommend a few records from the discography to entice people into the world of Wrong Speed?
Joe.
I think that that's almost impossible, isn't it? Because I feel hideously.
Just give a couple to show the diversity. Not this one's better, or just to show the diversity of the range of the.
Okay, well, you've got the Colossal Squid one there behind your head.
Yeah.
So that's Adam, who he also does drums, or certainly rhythms and whatnot else, for the band Pulp, and
heard of him,
and is the Goldie drummer.
Oh, that's
David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. David Gilmour's drummer.
Oh wow!
And that record is for us. I think there was a point where we wanted to do. I think Chris hinted at it earlier that maybe there's only slight crossover in our music tastes, but one of them is a weird sort of love for late 80s, very early 90s Essex-based rave music.
Sure.
Because it's just, I just find it so addictive to listen to. So we did this interview for, I think it was for Bandcamp or something. And in that interview, we said, we would love to release some music that sounds like that. And this came about from that. And it's not that really at all.
No.
But so you've got it. So it's my ears. It sits somewhere between like Aphex Twin and Lightning Bolt or something. But it's just like one drummer doing his thing. And like if you watch it live, it's absolutely unbelievable. If I was to pick up like another one, I think the Web of Lies one right next to your shoulder.
Yeah.
It's I have a feeling that in years to come that'll be seen as some form of like classic guitar rock record. It's just so good.
Yeah, they just seem to write these classic songs that sounding like they're not trying at all. Just come up with these like perfect songs, right? It's just amazing. Yeah. One of my favorites.
I mean, and you pick a few, Chris, because I don't.
Well, I was going to say Web of Lies because it was really early on in the label, and it was something that wasn't necessarily. We weren't searching that out. We didn't even know Edwin had done that. But I'm a really big fan of Edwin's music, and kind of think he's an enigmatic sort of character. I like what he does. And it kind of got passed to us through another artist who's on the label and said, they're struggling to find a label for this. And I think we both got it at the same time. And it was back in the times where it was lockdown. So we had some more time maybe to listen to music. And it went on, we both put it on, I think exactly the same time as each other when it turned up. And then both messaged immediately, probably about a minute and a half into the album, just to say, why hasn't this got a label? And how do we make sure that, how do we sign this man for life? How do we I just think it's really, it reminds me I love it because it's music I can't do things like that. I can't make music where I can sing and play guitar and it sounds amazing. And I'm completely in awe of Edwin for doing that. And the other one as well, I think the Sweet Williams self-titled album, I think is just one of the best albums ever, let alone that we've released. I think that, again, Tom is much like Edwin, someone that I don't understand how he does it. And when he delivered that album, I remember being slightly disappointed with it because it didn't have any rippers on it. And then after a couple of listens, just thinking, like, that's too good for our world. And
is that this one? Is that this one?
That's it. Yeah. I think it's just like a couple of listens to that, and I just thought, yeah, he's really done the job on that one. That's great.
And there's two things about Tom as well, which one is he's a very productive fella. So if you've got like the sort of kind of first press of that album, it came with a CD of like essentially demos for what was going to potentially be the next record. And I don't know if yours has got the CD in it, but it does. Yeah, that's what that is. It's not the songs on the album. It's essentially the next album demo.
Wow.
Which and this goes back to my thing about the Reaper chasing you. Like, just get the hell on with it. Like, do things.
Yeah.
Tom is someone who also did one of the 10 Minute Men sessions for Johnson Family.
Oh wow.
Because he was the main. Oh no, I'm not. It's unfair to say the main man. He was one of the 4 main people in Charlottefield.
Okay.
Who? Oh, again, one of the greats, I think.
Yeah. Okay, they're good suggestions. I'm going to throw out the Objections record as well, which is my favorite record of the year so far. I mean, how good is? How did you? Are they friends as well? How did you come across them?
I've known Joe and Neil from that band for over 25 years, I think.
Oh wow!
This is the first time
Are they on the 2 Minute Men compilation?
Bilge Pump are, yeah. Bilge
Pump they're from Bilge Pump. Okay, yeah.
Bilge Pump. So the first time I would have played in Leeds would have been probably Joe would have put the gig on. And then I toured with them. My old band Lords toured with Bilge Pump a lot. And then in sort of lockdown period, they were saying that Bilge Pump was maybe just going to be put on hold. They were going to do something else. And I went to go and see them play in Sunderland as Objections. And I did the, Ron Manager thing, got the cigar out of the inside pocket. So
sure.
you need to come and be on our label. And they said, yes, that was it. It took a bit of effort to get that one together, I think. That was one that we had a bit more of involvement in that than some of the other releases, but it's cracking. And also they play live loads and they're really good. It really helps us that they're such an amazing live band and they're out there doing it. But yeah,
Mm.
I can't think of what we put out recently. That's why I've just gone back to
Oh, it's so good.
10 records.
Yeah.
It's been pretty hectic the last sort of 18 months or so. It's been quite a lot of things coming out.
Keep it coming. Keep it coming. All right, I'm going to let you go in a moment. Thank you so much. But I'm afraid I'm contractually obliged because we have to ask all guests the same question. But which band, it has to be from the 90s, I'm afraid, to fit in with the podcast theme. Which band from the 90s would you have liked to have been in? Except your own bands.
Depends if I've got to replace. You do. You know the answer. Go on. And why is it Fudge Tunnel, Joe?
I tell you who looked like they were having the most fun in the 90s. And that's the band I'd like to be in. That's the Beastie Boys.
Right. Yeah.
They looked like they were having a whale of a time with Grand Royal magazine and the basketball court in their studio and everything. It looked like such a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's a good one. Yeah, Chris.
Okay, so it's obviously Nirvana, but then I'd have to be like the rhythm guitarist. I'd have to be the Pat Smear in the background.
Sure.
I can't replace Kurt. But I'm going to go with, because I watched your interview, or I watched a bit of it, and I'm going to watch the rest of it later. I'm going to go with Biss, because they were the greatest live band that I saw in that era. And I sincerely mean it. And I once told Stephen from Biss that his band changed my life, and he looked at me like I was absolutely insane. So that relates to Grand Royal as well, actually, Joe.
Yes, there you go. There you go. They were so nice, Biss. That was so great to speak to them. Yeah, I was like fanboying out really badly, but hey. Yeah.
They genuinely were the first band I ever saw play in a small venue that were like, they weren't going somewhere. It wasn't like they were going somewhere else. We weren't watching somebody. It was like, this is the perfect place to see them, in a 150 capacity room, and everyone's going crazy. And they were the first band I ever really saw that were like that. And then they were like, selling their t-shirts afterwards, doing fanzines. And I was a bit late to that, and they were so cool. Yeah, so
yeah,
I'll change my mind tomorrow, but I'm going Biss.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate taking the time. I'm going to stop the recording, but don't run away just yet. Okay. So that was Joe and Chris from Wrong Speed and Hey Colossus. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to it, even a tiny amount compared to how much I enjoyed interviewing them. And if what you heard about Wrong Speed piqued your interest, I've made a nice, long, comprehensive Spotify playlist of all my favorite Wrong Speed tracks. And if you like what you hear there, fuck Spotify, get over to Bandcamp and have a listen to the whole album, support the artist, support the label, support the music. As Joe said in the interview, even existing as an underground band in today's music industry is itself a political statement. So totally agree with him. And support the underground. Get in there and find something you enjoy. All right, I think that's all for me from this first bonus episode. See you in a minute.